According to a report by Owl Labs, 16% of companies are fully remote, and 40% are hybrid. That means they offer both remote and in-office options. Whether it's allowing remote work on certain days every week, opening up a few roles to remote working, or setting up 100% remote teams, companies of all sizes are exploring the remote work style. Hi, my name is Katie, podcasting from the Harvard office in New York, and this is Recruitment on the Go.
Stand clear of the closing doors, please.
You'll be surprised to know that about 43% of U.S. workers are already working remotely to some degree, with the number only expected to grow. And a whopping 86% of people believe they'd be less stressed in a flexible job. Whether it's for a single role or a full workforce, hiring remotely needs a different approach. You're not just looking for the right job skills, but also for the overall suitability in a remote working environment. Before we give you our 7 tips for getting great remote hires, let's quickly go over some pros and cons of remote work. The pros are higher productivity. Many case studies show how remote teams that stick to a schedule are more productive than in-house teams. Bigger talent pool. Not being bound by a geographical location means your talent search is virtually worldwide, giving you access to talent a traditional in-house role would never get you. Lower costs. With a remote team, there are some obvious savings, such as the money you'd spend on maintaining office infrastructure. Hiring remotely also means that you can somewhat adjust the salaries according to the cost of living standards of the candidate cities or countries. Just as there are pros, there are also cons to consider, such as distractions. While even offices aren't free of distractions, remote work can be full of them. In fact, it's one of the top complaints remote employees report. Potential security issues. Right from the safety of the devices your remote workers use to the Wi-Fi networks they connect to, security and access can be a problem. Limited face time. Managing the physical and cultural distances among your remote employees can be challenging, given that you all get limited face time with each other. The advantages of remote hiring clearly outweigh the negatives, and they are the reason why so many companies rely on talent in so many different parts of the world for even their most critical business operations. From sales, marketing, accounts, and development to customer service, businesses are looking at remote hiring for every imaginable role. Let's take a look at how you can perfect the art of hiring great remote employees and build winning remote-first teams. Number 1, fine-tuning your hiring process. Hiring for a remote team essentially means hiring for a certain set of skills needed to excel at remote working. A few of these remote working skills are great communication skills, powerful collaboration skills, strong organizational skills, good time management skills, self-discipline, and accountability. If a candidate doesn't have these, it's no use in taking them further in your hiring process, because without these, they'd inevitably be a bad fit. Evaluating your candidates for these skills is even more important, because unlike technical skills, you can't just upskill or train your candidates on them. They've got to have them already. There are many ways to test for these. Pre-employment tests, for example, are a great evaluation tool for such skills. With a pre-employment assessment solution, you can test your candidates for all the skills they need to be successful in the remote roles. These pre-interview assessment tests might look deceptively simple, but they can unlock invaluable insights to help you making shortlisting decisions. Another thing you want to look for when hiring a remote employee is their comfort level with video chatting, as a lot of these meetings and collaboration in remote teams happen via video calls. So testing for this sort of video compatibility is a crucial part of the remote hiring and working mix. Number 2, defining what you're looking for in the ideal candidate. Writing about who'd make an ideal candidate is important for any job listing, whether it's for an in-office position or a remote one. But it plays a bigger role in the remote hiring because it specifies the key remote working traits that the candidate must have. So if you believe a certain personality type will work best with you for a certain remote role, write that in your listing. In fact, encourage your applicants to take up a personality test and then consider applying. Maybe even recommend a personality test tool you like. This way, a lot of potential candidates might deselect themselves if they don't feel like they're a good fit. This is a good thing because it's not the quantity of applicants that matters, but the quality. Number 3, sourcing right. Instead of posting and promoting your jobs on traditional job boards like Monster and Indeed, or even LinkedIn, try job boards that are popular with remote workers. For example, We Work Remotely, with categories spanning across design, sales, and marketing, DevOps, and others. This job board is one of the top places for finding world-class remote talent. AngelList, a top place for startups to find and hire remote talent for all possible roles. Stack Overflow, a go-to job board for hiring developers looking for work-from-home opportunities. Remote.co, just like We Work Remotely, this job board also hosts jobs across many different teams and roles. Remotive. Remotive is also a popular job board with remote workers looking for roles in customer support, software development, product, sales, marketing, and other teams. Additionally, try these 3 things to get exposure as a remote company or employer so you can build your remote talent pool and source better remote candidates over time. The first, get listed in remote startup directories. The second, get placed in roundups like X companies or startups that hire remotely. The third, get mentions or attractions in remote working communities, for example, Facebook groups of remote workers. Number 4, helping candidates self-decide if they're a fit in a remote setup. Because remote working isn't for everyone, you can help your future candidates self-decide and rule themselves out if they feel so. The best way to go about this is to give your potential candidates an insider look into how you work remotely. So create educational resources that show how you work remotely and how you've given remote work your own unique spin. Talk about the tools you use, your processes, your review and feedback mechanisms, and more. Also, place all such content prominently on your jobs page and link to it from your listings. For example, Zapier, a fully remote company right from the start, has many useful resources describing its remote work culture. This content can be useful for anyone who's considering a job with them. The good fits will feel encouraged to apply, while others may realize otherwise. Check them out at zapier.com. Number 5, determining a fit for culture and values. Determining a candidate's fit for your company's culture and values is challenging for any company, even if they meet their candidates face-to-face. But this evaluation gets tougher for remote teams as all their interaction is only virtual. That said, such evaluation is still critical for making quality remote hires that stay with you. So how do you evaluate someone for an intangible concept such as culture and values? The first step is to define your culture and values, and then translating these ideas into assessment tests, surveys, or interview questions that you can actually score candidates on. For instance, for the remote startup Hotjar, one of their 8 culture values is always be learning. So to evaluate candidates on that, they ask this specific question: what have you learned in the last year? So start by clearly identifying and defining your culture and values. It's only after you do this that you'll be able to evaluate your candidates on them. Number 6, interviewing for a remote role. Different remote companies approach interviews differently, but most hold at least 3 interviews. Here's how Buffer, a company with a remote workforce, conducts 3 interviews to spot the best candidates. Culture and values interview. This interview focuses on finding how aligned a candidate is with Buffer's culture. Buffer follows a structured interview here by asking the same questions in the same order to each candidate, and they know and have documented what elements they seek in answers. Experience interview. This interview round also includes a brief exercise so that Buffer can assess the candidates on a true work product as well. Final interview. This last interview focuses on the key element of the role that Buffer believes might need more time and attention. For example, a code walkthrough if the role is that of a developer. Taking multiple interviews also means you might have a fairly long hiring period, which might not necessarily mean a bad thing in a remote hiring setup. Some remote companies are actually a little intentional about keeping hiring cycles this way and spacing out the interviews so that they get to interact more with the candidates. Number 7, offering a paid work trial. Once you've found your top candidate, it's time not to extend an offer letter, but to extend a contract for a trial period or a job tryout at pre-agreed conditions. Many remote companies use trial periods to be double sure before making an offer. A trial lets you see how skilled a candidate is for a job, how well they can learn, and how seamlessly they fit into your remote work. Automatic, a remote company, offers all its candidates a trial process that pays $25 an hour as a mutual tryout, so that both the candidate and the company are sure about it being a good fit. To make a trial period easy for your candidates, you can even allow them to work on weekends or in their free time, just like Automatic does. To conclude, when hiring remote employees, unless a candidate can thrive in a remote working environment, it doesn't matter how skilled or perfect they might be for a role. That's why when you hire remote employees, at every step, use messaging that helps candidates self-decide if they're considering or pursuing a job opportunity where they can shine. You should also use pre-employment tests and thoughtful interviews to find the best matches, candidates who have what it takes to work remotely. These are your best tools because in remote hiring, you don't always have the privilege to meet your candidates in person. Thanks for joining us on today's episode. If you want to learn more about everything and anything recruitment related, check out our blog at harvard.com/blog, and be sure to subscribe and tune in every weekday for another episode of Recruitment on the Go. See you next time.